Guys, thank you for joining us. Come on in and make yourself comfortable. Today, we are discussing the art of voir dire. All right, so we're talking about juries. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, my name is Genghis Shakhan. I'm the managing attorney here at Shakhan and Wilkerson Law Firm. I work alongside another amazing attorney, attorney Chelsea Wilkerson. We are a boutique law firm that serves the great state of Georgia. We handle cases in a few different areas that include family law, which is divorce, child custody, legitimation, as well as criminal defense and personal injury. It is a pleasure to present to you today. Today's topic, as I mentioned, is about voir dire or jury selection, and we're going to talk a little bit about that here shortly. Before we get into voir dire, I do want to tell you a bit about our boutique law firm. We are a two-attorney law firm. We have a small legal team. We are small on purpose, is what I'd like to share. Because we are small, we do get to know our clients. We get to know their cases. It helps us better advance their interest. Our clients are not just numbers, which they greatly appreciate. They appreciate the access that they have to us. They can reach us anytime on any given day, usually throughout the week. We make ourselves available. We avail ourselves to our clients. It is important to us. They are a paid consumer, that they are treated well, that they have access to us, and that we can try our very, very best to get them the thing they paid for, and that is going to be legal results. All right, that being said, let's talk about this wonderful topic that we have for you today. Before we do that, though, let's do our legal disclaimer. This video is intended for educational purposes only. It is not intended to be a legal consultation. So by watching this video, it does not form an attorney-client relationship between you and the law firm of Shakhan and Wilkerson Law, nor does it form a attorney-client relationship between you and myself as your attorney. Of course, if you have a legal issue, you're looking to retain legal counsel, it's always going to be best to make a call to go ahead and obtain a legal consultation, okay? And then after you've vetted several law firms or attorneys, you can decide who you are going to retain to represent your legal interest, all right? All right, if that law firm, if you believe that we might be a good fit for you, you can give us a call at 404-999-9529 or 478-845-1213, or you can tap the link up there in our bio and you can get on the horn with one of our excellent experts who will take your information, and we can talk about making contact at a later time and date. If you just have general questions, which people do, I strongly recommend that you go to our website. You can tap the link in our bio. You'll see a lot of blogs about all different types of topics, custody, divorce, whether it is a high stakes divorce with a lot of assets, equitable division, TPOs, temporary protective orders, domestic violence, you name it. There's probably a blog about it. We have dedicated a lot of time and energy to essentially putting these resources out there to you, because we know sometimes people just have general questions, really vague questions, that they want things demystified. They don't really need a legal consultation. We've also written a couple of books that are available, I think between $15 and $20. They're available via Amazon. Tap the link in our bio. You can access those as well. So those are great resources for you to start out with, is what I would say. If it rises to the level of you looking to retain counsel, retain an attorney, then you can think about going ahead and maybe giving us a call for a legal consultation, okay? Also, make sure you check out the library of videos we have here on YouTube, our long form content. We have a lot of videos here discussing pretty much everything legal in those three areas that I mentioned earlier, okay? All right, so you ready to dive in? Let's go ahead and do it, okay? So today we're going to talk about how attorneys in the state of Georgia select juries, and we're going to talk about the process of voir dire, all right? And so this is an important process, especially If you're talking about criminal defense cases, some family law cases do go to juries. Of course, you're talking more divorce, child custody is going to be decided by a judge. But yeah, some cases, a lot of civil cases will make it to, I don't want to say a lot because many cases settle, do make it to a trial, or if it's going to be a trial, it can be a bench trial or it can be a jury trial. So if you've ever wondered how attorneys select juries, this is your video, okay? And so many times if you are watching Perry Mason or I might have dated myself there, or you're watching, I'm trying to think of some other shows, legal shows out there. I think recently things like Goliath, the Lincoln Lawyer, those are the I think recent legal shows that are out there. But if you're watching any kind of legal show, you might see, there are jury trials, Law and Order. Sometimes they'll have those on jury trials on Law and Order as well. And so you'll see these people in the box. You might ask and question yourself how they got there. What was the selection process? And we'll talk a little bit about, at least here in the state of Georgia, what that looks like, okay? And so in selecting a good jury, some folks believe it's luck. It's really not, because you have to really be a student of human nature, okay? And so a lot of times those district attorneys or assistant district attorneys, and especially in criminal defense attorneys, and whether they're public defenders, conflict defenders, private attorneys, they are, essentially trying to read people to make a determination of who is going to be a great candidate to be seated on the jury. Okay, so it's not just luck, it's not just intuition involved. There is a lot of strategy involved in the question asking. Okay, and so if you're a defendant and you are anticipating a jury trial, this video is probably for you. Or if you're going through a divorce and you're anticipating a jury trial when it comes to equitable division of your estate, this is going to be for you as well, okay? And so your attorney has a lot of homework that they are doing, usually, prior to this. And then, of course, we'll talk a little bit about that question asking that happens during this process, okay? So behind the scenes, jury selection is known more or less as voir dire. And so trials sometimes can be won or can be lost on, the jury and these opening statements, that are delivered to the jury. And that's going to be, really, and how they land on those jurors collectively and individually. And we'll talk about why the individual component of it is important as well, okay? So voir dire essentially is the process of questioning prospective jurors before trial, okay? And the purpose of it is you really want to see what jurors can be most fair and impartial, okay? And then I'm gonna put the bunny ears up there, I think for obvious reasons, okay? You want the juror to be, fair for your guy, impartial when it comes to your guy or your gal, as opposed to the state, okay? And so that is essentially the aim, all right? And so its purpose is to identify jurors that can be fair. And so both the prosecution and the defense have an opportunity to question a jury panel, okay? And so usually that jury panel consists of an assembly of potential jurors, and the goal is to find, essentially, as I said, a group of people that are going to essentially best serve as jurors for a particular trial, okay? And of course, the court is going to follow the law and the statutes to make certain that everything is done as it should be, okay? And so here is why jury selection matters, is because when it comes to these cases, the facts matter and the law matters, okay? But the people applying the law to those facts matter probably much more, okay? And so jury selection is important for all those reasons, is because those jurors will bring their life experiences, personal beliefs, occupations, their educations, their family backgrounds, their prior experiences, maybe with law enforcement or the court or with attorneys, or with again prosecutors and the defendants, or just in general to the table. And those experiences might influence how they evaluate testimony as well as evidence. And that's something that, of course, you as an attorney have to take into consideration, is all of these X factors, how they might mesh together. Okay, so what are attorneys looking for during voir dire? And that's important to know, is that attorneys are trying to learn, can this juror be fair? And I'm gonna stop putting that up there, but can this juror be fair? Okay, that's what your attorney is trying to determine and find out. And same thing with the state, the district attorney, and we're talking about, of course, a superior court case, just a typical felony. That is, and that's why I continue to talk about the district attorney. So that is what you're trying to make a determination of. Okay, can this juror follow the judge's instructions? Does a juror have strong opinions about about this case? And will they listen to evidence before making a decision? So they're also trying to really assess how jurors, how they communicate, how they respond to questions, how they interact to others on the panel. So they're eyeballing jurors during this process, which is usually happening in a courtroom. And so there's a lot, as you can imagine, that goes into making these types of determinations about who is going to be seated in that juror box. Okay, and so here's some common topics that a lot of times jurors might be asked as they are going through this process by the attorneys, okay, or by the judge. Their previous jury service, if they've served on juries before, and some folks have. I had the opportunity and privilege to sit in on jury selection just yesterday. I like to do a little homework on sometimes prosecutors I haven't been up against before, and really find out how they do when it comes to some of their trials. And I always pick up great pointers from other more seasoned attorneys. And then, of course, a lot of times you can sit and listen, see how judges like to rule. And so it's always great to, I think, as an attorney, as a law firm, of course, Georgia requires, like many states, professional development every year from attorneys. But this is something that, folks at our law firm, myself and Chelsea, we make sure that we do our own professional development because we always want to put ourselves in position to make certain that our clients can prevail in their legal matters. So it's never going to be harmful for you to get in as much practice as possible. I think about folks in a different sport, different arena, someone like Shador Sanders, who I see putting in a lot of practice even after practice is over. That's important to us as well, so that we can be the best version of ourselves, is to sit, watch, study, so that we can improve in our craft. Okay, and so I had an opportunity to watch a very seasoned defense attorney yesterday put on a great show when it comes to voir dire, and watched him up against the assistant district attorney. And the judge also made some excellent points. And so that is essentially, and I'm saying all that to say is because everything I'm discussing now, I saw yesterday in that courtroom, right? So the judge had some questions for folks, for those jurors. They were asked about their previous service, their employment, maybe some had military backgrounds, talked a little bit about their families, their educational backgrounds, as well as if they've been engaged, if maybe they were involved in prior lawsuits, whether they've been victimized as maybe in a criminal matter, all right, or were they prior arrests, right? They have family members who have been arrested. Their opinions on the criminal justice system, that's going to be important. Relationships with law enforcement, that's going to be important. Experiences like sometimes with divorce or stuff like that. All of that stuff is important because all you can do as an attorney is get a snapshot into, really people's psychology, and to really try to make a determination of whether or not this person is going to be impartial and fair when it comes to, really deciding your case. Okay, so really the potential also is to uncover any type of bias. Okay, you're looking for bias, not to embarrass a prospective juror, but just to see, hey man, is this guy on the level, or is this gal on the level, and are they going to be able to be an impartial juror in deciding this case? And so, basically, attorneys can also challenge some of these prospective jurors for cause. And so, what do I mean by that? Sometimes a juror might admit that they cannot be fair. That happened yesterday in the trial that I sat in. Okay. And so there are examples where a juror might say, yeah, I could never find someone not guilty if they were arrested. Okay. So they believe that anyone is arrested is automatically guilty of that crime, no matter what the evidence presents. That's not going to be an impartial juror. Okay. So if you're a defendant, you probably don't want that person sitting there in the jury box. And so, as an attorney, that's someone that you might ask the judge to strike. Or if someone says, I automatically believe police officers over everyone else. Okay. And so again, if you're a defendant and there's going to be a police officer that's going to be a witness in this case, and you have a juror that's saying that I find the police officer's testimony more credible than anything that a defendant or any other witness might say, that party is probably not going to be an impartial party. Okay, and might not want that person sitting on that jury. All right. So if they can't be fair, if they can't follow the law, an attorney might ask the judge to, and probably will ask the judge to, remove that party, that potential juror for cause. And so there is no limit on the number of challenges for cause. Okay, so that usually happens first in the process as potential jurors are stricken from the jury panel. Okay, and then you have the peremptory strikes that are available to attorneys as well. And so not every concern might rise to the level of a challenge for cause, but there might be some potential jurors out there. There usually are, that give you as an attorney some pause about whether or not they are going to be impartial, or if they're just maybe not be good jurors. All right. And so attorneys are given a limited number of peremptory strikes, the defense as well as the state. And this, again, in the context of criminal defense. But I mentioned earlier, you have trials in civil cases as well, or in misdemeanor cases also, in those contexts. So peremptory strikes generally allow an attorney to essentially excuse a jury without really stating a reason. Okay, and so those again are they're limited in number. So these strikes, the thing about them is they can't be used to intentionally really discriminate against a jury based on race or gender, or some type of protected, class of persons. And so if discrimination is essentially, if the court believes that it's or if there's an allegation of discrimination, there might be what's called a Batson inquiry, and that's to determine whether or not one of the attorneys has stricken a juror for some type of impermissible reason, because they should be race neutral reasons that the jurors are stricken. Okay. All right. So let's talk about how attorneys actually evaluate some of these jurors. So a lot of times experienced trial attorneys, they're looking for a juror's communication style, their leadership tendencies, their reading, things like body language, and their willingness to participate, their ability to follow instructions, the personality, professional background, as well as some of their life experiences. So, and that's, the list is exhaustive, right? And so what I mean by that is there are a myriad of things that an attorney is using to really gauge whether or not a juror is going to be a good fit, okay, for for a lot of different reasons, all right. And so some of the things that you have to take into consideration is the collective, and we'll talk about that here shortly. So there are no single characteristics into really trying to determine who is going to be a good juror and who is not. And so really attorneys have to look at the panel many times as a whole as well as individuals. And so here are some jury selection myths that are out there that I wanted to address. That one, there's a perfect juror, and that's just not true. In reality, jurors are imperfect because they are people, right? And people are imperfect, right? Just by their nature. The lawyers only want what's so-called educated jurors. Again, that's not true. Every case is going to be different, and different cases call for different juries. Okay, so it just really depends on the type of case. Maybe that would be true in a case where there is some type of a business, right? That is it's going to have some really involve a lot of business lexicon. And it's going to be challenging to really analyze the facts and apply the law to the facts. Maybe in that type of situation that would be important. So really just depends. Myth number 3 is that if you answer honestly, you won't be selected, and that's not true at all, right? So a lot of times the attorneys are looking for your honesty. The court is looking for your honesty because no one wants to waste their time selecting a jury only to have a mistrial or to have to dismiss jurors. Ultimately, it's a huge waste of time and resources, and no one would be happy about that. So it's best that from the outset everybody is very honest, all right? And honesty matters for a lot of reasons, but you should, as a juror, when you're asked these questions from counsel or from the court, answer honestly. You want to speak up if you can't be fair, and that's in yesterday's jury trial, jury selection. I saw that there were some parties that came forward and said, "Hey, listen, I can't. I have difficulty being fair." One party said that she was attacked, I think in her home, and the police didn't do a thorough job investigating the crime, and so she doesn't feel a lot of sympathy for officers and the police, and she finds that it would be very difficult to be fair, right? And so she voiced her concern. Ultimately, the court addressed that concern, and that honesty, I think, was appreciated. And so, speaking up about fairness, speaking up about hardships, there were mothers that were nursing, new mothers that were nursing. Of course, there are concerns about breastfeeding and having to pump. There were college students that were starting a semester, new college students, freshmen. There were folks that had transportation challenges. There were folks who were looking over ailing parents who require really constant supervision and monitoring because of advanced stages of Alzheimer's, dementia, things like that, right? And so those are concerns that the court is trying to hear about because you don't want to lose a juror midway through a trial and have to start to burn through alternates, right? And so that's going to be important for a court to know. That's why honesty is really important. And the justice system really depends on your honesty during that voir dire process, okay? And now the psychology of jury selection. So a lot of times attorneys are thinking about group dynamics. For example, who might become the foreperson, right? So you're looking at these people and you may ask yourself, well, who might be the foreperson, really the leader that emerges among this group, okay? Which jurors may influence others during deliberation? Again, these are human beings. We are a lot of times influenced by our peers, right? And so that's going to be important, getting certain people in the mix that might influence others, right? Whether or not certain personalities may dominate or encourage discussion or, analysis, etc., or whether certain jurors might be troublemakers. Okay, they're not going to do what they are being told to do. We're going to try to discourage other jurors from following the rules. Those types of things are. So the goal is not to really manipulate the process, but to see the juror again who can fairly evaluate the evidence. All right. And so this is what really clients need to know about this process. Really, a lot of times, you may get questions about, hey, well, why did you strike that particular juror? Okay. And so a lot of times your counsel is going to let you know, jurors are struck for strategic reasons. And many times defendants are very involved in this process. They'll be present and they'll be involved and engaged in talking with their counsel about jurors that they like. Ultimately, it is your case, right? And so depending on the stakes in the criminal defense case, we're talking about your freedom. So you may want to be as involved as possible in this process, okay? So attorneys do have to make these strategic decisions with limited time, limited information, and of course, a limited amount of peremptory strikes. And so, you'll see the back and forth between the district attorney's office, again, in the context of a superior court felony case, and the attorney or the private attorney, the criminal defense attorney, public defender, conflict defender, whoever's representing the defendant, okay? And so you'll see the striking, and it's ultimately, it ends with a jury being impaneled with those alternates up there, okay? And so if you're going through, you have a criminal defense case, and again, there are trials in family law cases as well, particularly divorce cases. But jury selection is one of the most important parts of that case if you have a jury trial, if you're having a jury trial, not a bench trial. And a lot of times it's the least understood, but it's the least understood part of trial. So it's about identifying people who are going to be impartial, who don't have these preconceived opinions, who can follow the law. And again, they can kind of divorce themselves from their emotions as well as some of their prejudices, okay? So a thoughtful jury really helps protect the fairness and integrity of a fair, of a trial for everyone that's involved, right? All right, again, if you have a criminal case, if we can assist you and help you out, we'd be more than happy to. Feel free if you're looking to retain an attorney. We do offer financing, in-house financing for criminal defendants. Feel free to give us a call at 478-845-1213 or 404-999-9529. Or you can go and hit the link in our bio and talk with one of our experts, and we'll get in touch with you and talk to you a little bit about your case and see if we might be a good fit for you. In addition to that, if you just have general questions, take a look at some of our blogs. You can hit the link in our bio for that. Or you can, if you have a divorce or a family law case and you kind of want to read some literature on those topics before moving forward with a legal consultation, you can again hit I believe the link in our blog, link in our bio. It should take you to our website. At the bottom of our website, we do offer some resources for sale that are also available on Amazon. I believe there are 2 books that regarding divorce, child custody, and family law that are really, really helpful. Okay. All right, guys, as always, thank you for joining us. If this is your first time, if this has been helpful, please give us a like. If there's some information in here that can help a family member or a friend, make sure you share it. And then make sure you follow us for all things, either family law, divorce, child custody, criminal defense, as well as personal injury. Thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I'll see you next time.